Namaste, Sasrikal and Salam friends. Welcome to yet another episode of the talk show Sajan Nair, Tourism, Hospitality and Aviation. Today's discussion is on heritage tourism and we have two eminent speakers in our panel. Let me take the pleasure of introducing you to Miss Jyotsna Patwardhan. She has been with the GICED, University of Mumbai, since the inception and has been the guiding light to the tourism program from undergraduate to postgraduate level. She has been the founder course coordinator and now a management board member of GICED. Welcome, ma'am. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Sajan.
And I should also introduce by
be
saying
on the show of my own student.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I was coming to. And also have the pleasure of saying the fact that she's been my guru. She's the one whom I hold hands and come into the tourism industry. Welcome to the show, ma'am. Also, we have with us is Miss Preeti Vanage, Events Curator and Arts and Cultural Manager. Miss Vanage has a vast experience of more than 10 years in curating and managing huge variety international, national and local events that span topics across culture, heritage, music, sports, tourism, and weddings. Ms. Preeti is also the Honorary Secretary of the Indian Heritage Society. Welcome, Preeti. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sajan, and thank you for inviting me on this platform. I'm sure it will be a great interaction and a learning experience for everyone. Thank you.
Very true. And the topic for discussion today is heritage tourism. So let's start with Patwardhan ma'am. The question is, what is heritage tourism? How would you define it? How do we understand what is heritage tourism?
Well, as the name itself says, heritage tourism is something about heritage. But let me tell you, everything around us is our heritage, you know. So all the assets or all the attractions in tourism come from our environment. It could be tangible, intangible, living, non-living. It could be in many forms, but they come from our heritage. It is our legacy. And we have to create an experience to make a wonderful tourist experience, to call it heritage tourism. If you take natural environment, there could be, many things. There could be wonderful mountains, wonderful beaches, other kind of scenarios, and also there could be man-made ancient monuments like from archaeological time to some wonderful like Taj Mahal or Qutub Minar or the Meenakshi temple in the south or Rajaraja temple in the south. There are many such. But when you say heritage tourism, you have to create a product which gives you a feeling of experiencing that heritage. The other aspect of the heritage is the intangible part, that is the living culture. Everything that we do today, art, crafts, cuisine, it has a certain tradition. It has come from the age-old times and it has adapted itself to present times. And there are many such products which can be created, and when anybody who is working in the tourism industry has to make an effort to create an experience to, make them feel this heritage. This is heritage tourism is all about. And there could be multiple definitions.
Preeti, an extension of the question, since you're into events and you're closely associated with Mumbai city, how do you associate heritage tourism with what Mumbai city is all about? What is your opinion on that?
Okay, so as Josna Madam rightly said, heritage tourism is all about, creating a story trail around the history, which covers the people, its customs, traditions, the celebrations that the people do in the community. It's all about creating that into a package, a product, tourism product, and presenting that destination, and then creating infrastructure around it to sort of boost that tourism. In terms of Mumbai city, I would like to mention specifically, if you talk about Mumbai city, then of course we have great architectural structures already, in the South Bombay, be it the Ballard Estate, where the Scottish architect George Whitett had actually planned, developed the entire few buildings over there, which are quite prestigious monuments. Again, the Gateway of India, or the Prince of Wales Museum. Formerly, it was known as Prince of Wales Museum. Now it's called the Chhatrapati Shivaji Vastu Sangrahalaya. So these are the monuments, and keeping that in mind, we had showcased the cultural heritage of the city or the country. So, for example, we had proposed a proposal with India Tourism Mumbai to promote the Adopt a Heritage scheme that the government of India had actually come up, declared on the World Tourism Day on September 2017. So, under that scheme, they wanted to attract public and private sector companies or individuals who would want to take the onus of maintaining the different heritage structures which are listed under the ASI. So it was a collaborative effort with the ASI as well. So we thought about it, how would we do that? So we actually created this lovely concept where we selected the grade A heritage venue, which is the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya, which has also been recognized with UNESCO under the cultural contribution for conservation of cultural heritage in the country. So that was, I think, the apt location that we selected. And against that background, we presented the cultural legacy, where we had dancers and instrumentalists and vocalists who were performing. We had 5 different classical dance forms where we got dancers from various parts of the country, collaborated it and presented it. And it was presented to a target audience, corporate audience, wherein they understand the importance of taking this legacy forward. That was the whole intention, and it was extremely appreciated. And another reason why we selected the museum as a venue, because the CSMVS museum is not a government aided body, so it also has taken efforts. Before CSR came into existence, the word CSR came into existence, it has taken efforts to actually raise funds, to pitch in to various corporates, to raise funds to maintain their structure. So they knew the drill, they knew the process beforehand, and we wanted them to present a case study in front of the audience as well, the corporates, as well as it's an example for the government of India, that they should really try to use that as a pilot project and take it forward from there. So we had an amazing response. In fact, we got few prospects, few corporates also who were willing, and it's the proposals are still in, they'll still be formed now in few years maybe, because it's all a government initiated process. So they take their own formalities that they need to do, they take that through. So I think there is a lot of scope in the city to present the cultural dimension of the city against the backdrop of the heritage and the architectural heritage of the city. Also, the city has a vast history, the way how it's carried forward from generations, how it's gone from one community to another. So from the Dutch to the British to the Portugal to the British, and then eventually, how it's gone through the freedom struggle, and then, the Sanyukta Maharashtra Chalwal, The whole thing, it's amazing. There's so much to offer, and so much the audience can actually take from it.
Right. Preeti, my question to both of you, since progressing with the discussion, the question is, apart from the economical, hurdle that we have to support these structures and things like that, we as society in Mumbai or anywhere, we don't give it the emotional value to it. Am I right if I say so? Or do you think just because we don't have the money, we don't have the exercise to go with, that is why it is not being promoted? Or do we value it ourselves? Am I right?
Yeah, I would say that in current times, I would say last decade, or especially last 4 or 5 years, there is a much greater awareness about learning to value your heritage and the monuments, because you know that if you look at the UNESCO heritage site list, now the Mumbai downtown district, which has come under the UNESCO, these efforts were being made since long time. But in present times, people have become more aware, and they realize that this is something that you don't own, the heritage. You have to preserve, take care of it, and keep it for the generations to come, to learn first about it, then to conserve it, to preserve it, to show it to others. You learn to first appreciate it yourself, then you can show the good parts. So people are slowly, gradually becoming aware. And unfortunately, this awareness has come very late, but never the same, it is here now. And people have started valuing our, whatever the monuments we have, whether it is Mumbai or anywhere else in Maharashtra or our country. To begin with, we only spoke about, a few numbers, but now we certainly value each and every one of them. They have been listed properly. They have been brought under UNESCO list. They are being made known to the public. And I would say that tourism professionals have played a big role in doing so, because the assets for tourism come from this. What do you show? You show the monuments, you show the traditions, and now the tourism industry professionals have played a huge role in spreading this awareness. And though we were really late to start, it's picking up very well now. The very fact that we have taken it as a topic today to discuss, it shows that there is a certain, awareness about it. It has gained certain significance. Okay. So, thank you.
Preeti, your thoughts? How do you look at it?
Yeah, so firstly, I think in terms of appreciating heritage, it has to be imbibed, so either imbibed by the family that you are born in, and the second most important thing is how it's being taught in school. So I think that is something that we are still lagging behind, wherein heritage as a subject, heritage and culture is not a primary subject taught in schools. So I think that's one thing. Also, by the time you are in college, you have already developed a certain attitude towards looking at your culture, heritage, and I think so. If you're looking at imbibing the quality of preserving or cherishing or even celebrating culture, you have to follow this when you're very young. You need to get these values while you are young. And moving forward, I'm sure it will then ultimately, there'll be schemes from government and, social media campaigns where, you don't need youngsters now to really tell them that, these campaigns are running. They'll very actively then participate. Uh, Speaking from how things have changed, I think one of the major reasons what has happened, what I have seen personally, is the government using social media as a platform to engage the audience. I think that has been really huge. Like I think since 2014, the government has been really using social media as a marketing tool to reach out to the audience, to tell them, to educate them how do you take care of the different heritage sites, and what are the other schemes that have been brought up by the government, and running competitions, or getting them actively involved, getting the colleges involved, getting the different government organizations or corporates involved. So that also has, I think, played a huge role in understanding. So people like the Clean India campaign that was run, or even this Adopt a Heritage that was done. So these are campaigns, and they are publicizing it. They've actually created separate websites with good interface, user-friendly interface. So that has really helped, definitely. So
Moving forward, because there'll be a lot of young aspirants looking at as our viewers. So, what are any latest trends that has come in heritage tourism? Any new things that has come? Anything that you can speak about? Your opinion on that, and how is it going as on for today's concern?
Yes, I would say that, there are lots and lots of trends that are emerging as people are becoming aware. See, I'll give you an example, like the Warli tribe, which exists on the outskirts of Mumbai.
Yeah.
Say about 2 decades ago, people were slowly getting to know about it.
Yeah.
But now you will see not only, the products that have Warli designs, but there are many, many
Go ahead, ma'am. It's getting stuck. It's okay. Go
Do
ahead.
I need to repeat what I said? So,
No. Yeah, you can start with the last where you left, so that
yeah.
the continuity is.
Now we see not only Warli products getting adapted on modern common articles like say different bags, posters, many little things that we use, which are not originally traditional Warli designs, but they are adapted. Not only that, people, the tourists, the visitors like to make a tour to the Warli villages to see their lifestyle, spend some time, see how the artist really makes it and what is the legacy behind it, how have they inherited it from their forefathers. So just see a simple, a tribe existing on the outskirts of Bombay or Mumbai. There is a wonderful visit for tourists to go and see the emergence of that art, and those artists are also adapting themselves to show it to the modern audience. Earlier they did it as like any other painting, to protect, to take their traditions forward. But now they explain it to the visitors very well. They adapt it, they show their material. They are now adapted using modern material as well. So Preeti can narrate a story on that how these people have also learned to handle the tourists, the clients, the visitors who come to them.
Very important. Customer service. Yeah, Preeti, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are many
So,
such examples, same about cuisine, whether it's food, it's crafts, or any other monuments. It's like there are walking tours and there are many things which show you around. And it's like the trends are growing very fast. If you see uh, people from different areas, even the small pockets like Kotachiwadi or the Bandra Koli village, everybody likes to get visitors to show them their lifestyle. So that's how it is now. The trends are emerging. Lot of heritage tourism products are emerging, and I'm sure many more will come. And in religious area, there are many more. Like you have the Ashtavinayak tour on weekends, or you have the Shirdi tour on weekends. There are lots of, now these were all things that we have inherited, but now they have grown into proper products. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
yeah, so talking about trends, I think earlier where people were more concerned about the number of places they visited on in a certain number of days. They were mm, uh, they planned it a certain way. The itinerary. Now I think people want more customized trails planned, also short trips, also they're not looking at the conventional resorts and those 5-star luxuries all the time. They're looking more for an experience that they can actually take back as a memory of that place. It could be also a souvenir that they can take back, and if that souvenir is actually made out of their own hands, then the experience is amazing. Like as Josna madam mentioned that for Varli village, so now people actually go to the districts of Raigad and like the Varli districts of Mopada and Johar, over there where you can actually they take you for a day or so, and you can actually sit with those tribals, and eat a meal that they normally prepare. So they will prepare on their chula. It's a traditional lit furnace, and then they will show the area around. They will also make you do certain activity which revolves around Varli art. It could be painting their umbrellas, or posters, or the walls, or some canvas paintings. It's of course even that art form has evolved over the years. So the Varli artist himself has to keep up to date, to the technology, evolving technology. So they are now using brushes and paints, acrylic paints, instead of rice, which was ground earlier and mixed with water, and bamboo stick that was used as a brush applicator, to do on their mud walls. But now they have also changed. I have noticed that, and it's true for every art form, every individual. If you want to sustain the change, you can't be left behind. If you want to keep that livelihood going on, you need to match your steps with the world. So people now are looking at those kind of experiences, where they can actually have a good engagement with the local people. Also, with all this COVID-19 happening, I'm sure now the major concern what everyone has is safety, health, medical facilities around. If there are any, they don't, and I'm sure they're not, they're totally okay paying a little bit more for this particular aspect now. So they would want good hospital facilities around, or some good roads infrastructure, which doesn't take a lot of time in commuting. So these, I think, would be the trends, and this is how it's going to emerge.
Since we are speaking about heritage tourism and we are talking about many aspects of it, it's just come to my mind. I'm being the devil's advocate. We have, the world is running towards man-made attractions. Let's talk about Dubai. Let's talk about Singapore, and they make snow in the desert, and they're making money out of it. So are we outdated? Do you think we are not keeping in pace with time? How do you look at it, ma'am?
Well, personally, I think that in India we have been so fortunate
Yes.
and we have been left with such a legacy that not only we should learn about it ourselves, in even in domestic tourism or even for Indians, like apna desh samajh lo, apna desh dekho.
Dekho.
It is so important that you have never looked at it with the view of appreciation. You have sort of taken it for granted. But as I said, as the awareness is coming, people, the domestic tourists are themselves learning to appreciate. And the countries, there are modern countries. Well, you have the Disneyland in the US, which
Yes.
was a totally a theme park. But in India, we are so fortunate to have inherited cultural, natural, wonderful, environmental, beautiful places. And only what all we have to do is create an experience around it. So I personally think that India should and must focus, because you have to understand, you can't, you if you have money like oil money, as you mentioned, in the Middle East, okay, they could create snow in the desert, but you can't create heritage. That is something your forefathers have created and they have left it for you. And what you need to do is learn to know about it, appreciate it, preserve it, and make very good use of it to learn so many things, show it to others, and take it forward. It's very important, because nobody is going to create a heritage. It's already there, and we are fortunate, and we should realize this fact that we are fortunate and take it forward. And we have to create products, especially in this era, where things are going to change. Now, mass tourism is going to change. I remember there used to be a movie called If It's Tuesday, It Must Be Belgium. Like you do five capitals, fatafat tours. Now, those kind of tours are not a reality. Plus, people are definitely going to look very critically at the health factor. They also want to participate, interact. You don't forget that when you take a group tour, you just walk people in a group and the guide is giving the commentary. Whereas, as Preeti said, that you like to make a souvenir that you have made. So you like to put your hand in that potter's whatever and create it yourself and then take it back as an experience, to memorize your experience. So such things, such products are going to emerge, and they have already started emerging. People like to interact with the locals, people like to know about local things, and these things are going to matter very much, and heritage and history is very much part of it. And therefore I think we have a great wealth in India. The only thing is we have to use it properly. Okay, and the new generation, new professionals who are entering this field, they have to be innovative enough to create good products out of this wealth that we have.
Preeti, how do you look at it?
I think your question that places like Dubai will be more of man-made attractions. So that is something that I think, as Josna Madam said, can be built with the amount of funding that will come in, and the infrastructure can be built. But what you can't take away is the heritage and the history and the cultural traditions that are there in the place. So that is something that you have a chance to build on to create a tourism product. Now, I think we are very fortunate in a way that we are a mixed batch, India, where you also have, cosmopolitan cities around like Mumbai, where you have the infrastructure, or Delhi, where you have infrastructure. But then if you notice and if you actually go back to the statistics, majority of tourists who come to India are coming with the intention of exploring the heritage and the culture of the city. And they are also very happy that the tourist the personnel, tourism departments, or the tourism personnel who attend to them are English speaking. So it's a universally accepted language. That's an advantage. They are also quite approachable, and also at the same time the infrastructure is pretty decent. So you pay a certain amount and you get that, in a way. So I think tourists who come visit India come with the intention of staying in good infrastructure or resort facilities, but at the same time, they would want to have experience a flavor of India. So even if you see various resorts, they have tied up with certain associations, tour guide associations, who take them around to local heritage venues or natural, views, to have a look around the place, to give them a flavor of what are the different artifacts that are available, what is the industry that is prevalent in that area. So these all are contributors to tourism. And also, I think statistically speaking, these kind of tourists, who invest in a country with the idea of learning more about the culture, end up spending also more, or end up staying longer in that destination. So I think it's extremely beneficial, even economically, for a country to have a very strong cultural and a heritage base, and promote the tourism accordingly. And I think India has been doing that for years, So,
Preeti, the next question is to you. As an event organizer in a city like Mumbai, what are the challenges you face, whether it's tourism, whether it's in different genres that you've worked in event? What are the challenges that you face as an event organizer? And have we Indians changed in the last 10 years or 15 years' time? Has there been a change in the entire working?
So challenges for event management or challenges for heritage tourism?
Event management, because you can club the two. You can club tourism and event. That's what I'm asking the question.
Right. So event management has changed a lot. It has evolved a lot with the digital and the technology innovation that's happened in the past decade. So there are a lot more professionals who have entered who otherwise had not thought of getting into event management. Also, event management is a arm of marketing. So if anything you want to launch or you want to promote, you will look at creating a product which is an event, which has a certain goal, or an outcome that you expect. So things have definitely changed with the digital forums coming in place. And I think going forward with everyone trying to do a digital or a virtual event, it's also going to reach a wider audience. I think going forward, it's going to, even after the lockdown, completely relaxes, and the safety norms come in, and the vaccine also when it comes in, people want to go out, because at the end of it, man is a social animal. You can't take people around isolated places, or you can't have them restricted to their homes and just constantly being on a virtual platform. So people will venture out with the requisite health and safety norms in mind. But also there will be quite a lot of people who otherwise would not have attended will attend it virtually. See, your whole audience has suddenly expanded exponentially because of virtual mediums. And I think that's a great thing, great in terms of getting your sponsorships, great in terms of reaching a wider audience, viewership. Also great in terms of promoting your heritage, your culture, your artists, your musicians. It's amazing. I think that's an amazing platform. in a way, definitely. I know we are still at a stage where everybody is trying to experiment different platforms to create that synergy effect. And I know we are not 100% happy with how things are happening, but I think we just need to wait and watch. But digital forums and digital virtual events are not going anywhere. They are here to stay, according to me. And club with that, there will be physical events. So there could be like a few series of events that will happen virtually, and probably the finale or the valedictory event is going to happen physically with the dignitaries, and so things will have to have a combination. Definitely.
Okay.
And I think in terms of challenges that you asked, in terms of challenges, I think challenges. I think one of the major challenges that I have faced is doing so. Mostly, I work in open air events, which are like open to public, and they're cultural events, and they are not ticketed events. They're sponsored events basically. So the challenge that I face is to actually get the permissions to, when we're looking for road diversion and we are looking at too much of traffic jams, and that's something that happens all the time in the city, especially now more so ever because of the various infrastructure development that's happening in the city with metro and the coastal road. So I think those are the challenges. People take much longer now to commute between the suburbs and the South Bombay. It's crazy. So keeping that in mind, the whole dynamics of conducting an event, selecting a venue becomes a little bit of a challenge.
Okay. Ma'am, the question is to you. Any anecdote, anything that you can tell us a story of, while you're working in this area of heritage, something you remember that you can share with us today, maybe with the person you've spoken to or some interaction you can share us with us today in heritage tourism?
Sure. Today that Preeti is the Secretary of Indian Heritage Society.
Yes.
I have been a member of Indian Heritage Society almost from its inception in Mumbai. It was formed earlier in Delhi, and later the branch came to Mumbai. And I was active, and I used to take my students along. And I realized that when we used to teach the students in the class, and everything was in theory, but when we took students to Convocation Hall for any event, the kind of sense of pride they felt once they went there, of sense of belonging to Mumbai University. Kalina campus is quite different, and the ambience of the Mumbai University Convocation Hall is totally different. And I must mention Mrs. Anita Garware, who was also on our management board earlier. She made it a point to make sure that the students are taken to the Convocation Hall to give them sense of pride or sense of belonging. So every time there was a sort of, event or some seminar or some particular event organized in Convocation Hall, we also used to call somebody who would give information about Convocation Hall. And it's such a wonderful place, and it has such a wonderful legacy that the students used to be awestruck, that, okay, we are part of it. I mean, they themselves were not aware that they are part of this legacy. Now, teaching this in the class and taking them there and making them experience it. Similarly, I will give you another example of the same organization, that Indian Heritage Society started organizing Ban Ganga Festival. Ban Ganga is a tank, and there used to be live music programs where the artisans used to be on a floating deck on the water at Banganga. And it created such a wonderful experience that people who had visited Banganga, which was, I would say, so dirty during daytime, turned into a wonderful place during that event. That it used to dawn on students that what kind of legacy we have. We have such places. So one is an ancient temple with a legend going with it that, Lakshmana had thrown an arrow to get the water.
Right.
And the other is the convocation hall, which was built by the British. But look at the feeling you get when you experience it. So I think that once you experience it yourself, like the marketing team is trained, they themselves realize that what a wonderful ambience you experience when you go to such places. And that's how they learn to pass it on. They are effectively able to narrate it to the tourists, to the visitors, and they function better in the industry. So I think this was an internship of sorts, making them participate, in these such events, or holding a seminar even at a venue. We know that in present times, now we are doing it sitting at home, wherever we are, but there are certain compulsions. But if you were to go at a very impressive venue, that itself creates an effect. So going to these monuments, it's a wonderful experience. And we have so many monuments. We have even the caves in Mumbai, a very modern city. We have something like Canary and Elephanta. It takes you back thousands of years, so we have to learn to appreciate and pass it on. And I have seen that the students who grew up in Mumbai, who never really appreciated their own heritage, after learning about it, after being taken on such visits, how their mindset totally changed. I mean, you've been my colleague also after being a student, and you know that how students have changed their mindset after learning about these things. Yeah.
Ma'am, I think I should say that
Yeah.
you explained to us about it like a teacher. I really know if I walk into Mumbai University and into the hall, how I will feel. I think you explained it very well in words. Same question to you, Preeti, but a little twist to it is that your anecdote on when you organize a cultural event. Okay, anything that kept into your mind, some story that you can share with us.
So actually, there are quite a few of stories and challenges. I'll tell you about the cultural event part is the Banganga festival, which was actually my mother was one of the founding members who started this along with Maharashtra Tourism. Basically, she was a part of Maharashtra Tourism. And Mrs. Anita Garware was there, and Indian Heritage was involved. And of course, Josna Madam mentioned that there were interns from Garware Institute who would come and volunteer. So as a child, I have seen that location, just like a regular tank. I had no idea about what is its significance in terms of heritage value. And I would see that transform in a matter of 2 days. The tank used to get cleaned properly. There were swans that were bathed and sent into the water. Beautiful illumination on the water as well as the temples around, and we had some amazing, extremely eminent and legendary artists over there who performed, and it was surreal. Absolutely, like the idea of using Banganga under the banner of using live music to save heritage. Was an amazing concept by Mrs. Anita Garware. And now we do that because it's silent zone, declared silent zone, we have shifted the venue to Mumbai Sanskruti, which is outside Asiatic Library. So that also the culture is the same, using live music to save heritage. Under that banner, we have forwarded this. The other thing is about using open air parks. So we were wondering, how do we create a sense of pride for culture amongst children? There's nothing that has been actively done in schools apart from they going to different classes, but they don't really come to parks anymore, because they have their classes that they go to. And how do we get the community together? And as a community, how will you encourage and enjoy and celebrate the culture together? So we came up with this Art in the Park in 2013, which was a concept developed with Indian Heritage Society, and it was in association with MCGM. So they very kindly allowed us to use the parks. It's again a non-commercial project. And we've so far done 19 editions, like 19 events of Art in the Park across the city. We have over there performing arts, so we collaborate with different schools and colleges and NGOs. So there are differently able children who actually come there. And, I have seen a sea change in my attitude towards disability from the time I started communicating. Like, I remember this one instant, which I still get goosebumps, that I had gone to this deaf and mute children's school in Chemburu. I had gone there and I was trying to convince them that, please be a part of this. And, and they said, yeah, our students actually do this silent national anthem. So I said, okay, silent national anthem. Yes, I have seen it on TV and I have seen it on YouTube. Yes, I know about it. Oh, how nice. Great. And I accepted that. But on the day of the event, when the silent national anthem happened, the students were there, the entire audience was on their feet, and it was only the instrumental music that was being played, and they were miming. Trust me, each and every member in the audience was so proud of being an Indian. Most of the emotional lots were, had their eyes watery, and they were really touched, because seeing something digitally as opposed to experiencing this firsthand is a huge difference. And from that day onward, I started looking at things quite differently in that aspect. So I remember me going back to the same school the next year and convincing them that, your students, I'm not happy with your students just dancing, like deaf and mute children just dancing to the songs. So they used to feel quite amused, that, okay, our children can't listen to, but they can still do counting in the memory and they can pick up the dance steps. So they thought that was a great feat, which is. But I said, no, your students need to mingle with the other children. I have over there 2,000 plus students, like children who come from the age group of 5 to 14. I want you all to conduct workshops, art and craft workshops for them. And they were shocked. And they said that, our students can't, because they can't talk. How are they going to communicate? They have a tough time, getting into mainstream. They'll be scared, and, that's not possible. And I said, listen, I've been coming to your school since 2 years, and most of your students communicate with me and I can understand. They can understand what I'm talking. I don't know sign language. How is that possible? So you need to we created these mock workshops for them, wherein we arranged for school children, regular school children as an audience, and we made them practice in front of them how to teach art and craft, and they managed brilliantly. And we managed to pull this off in our Art in the Park. And, at the end of each workshop session, the children who participated in that workshop activity knew the names of their instructors, who were also children of their age or probably a little year or two older, but who could not speak or talk. I mean, listen and talk. And they actually came up and they told, auntie, they can't speak because they can't hear. Now, that kind of sensitization could only be was possible because of this activity. So, I am really, really proud of the kind of achievement that Art in the Park achieved in the past 19 editions of the event. Also, the last year that we did Art in the Park at Priyadarshini Park, it was the first time deaf and mute children were going to sing. Were going to actually sing. They were taught to use their vocal cords and actually sing, and there were musicians who were playing. So again, they came up to me, their teacher came up to me and said, you know what, remember the first time they actually attempted to do the workshop, they were so happy. So this time, without you pushing us, we have pushed ourselves and the students, and they have attempted to sing. Now, that is what I think an event or a cultural, celebration should be able to translate into. Because at the end of it, these are the children who will take this forward. So I think I'm very proud. I mean, I'm not talking about commercially, but the kind of initiatives that I've been able to take because of Indian Heritage Society is amazing, So those are my...
Definitely, it sounds also, and it is very encouraging for the young as such, and a great achievement also. I should not reserve myself from saying that. We are completely out of time. We had a very good discussion on heritage tourism. I'll just give 30 seconds each. And the last to close with is that what is your advice to the young aspirants who are coming in? What is that they should look for, and how should they? What is your advice? That's what it is. 30 seconds each, because we have already had 45 minutes of discussion now.
I personally think that the young people should make an effort to learn about their heritage and environment, which is part of the heritage, and then create their own niche to work in it. If they are tourism professionals like our students at Garhwale, they have a huge scope of creating products, creating awareness, creating experiences, creating wonderful tours, wonderful events. And just now you heard the variation that we discussed, that what all that can be done, and you can spread it globally. And I think that the younger ones should take inspiration and must venture into it. These are the times when people are not going to come with job offers to you. You will have to create your own niche, and you do it this way. And my best wishes to them. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so for the students of tourism, I think there's a huge opportunity there. Again, with the social media, there are a lot of other jobs that have come up, like digital marketing, there's content writing, there's blogging, and then you can be influencers, you can create YouTube videos. You just need to have good content, and for good content you need to do your research well. So you need to really research the destination, the area, actually visit that area, engage with the local community, find a gap that you can actually try to fill in. If there is a gap between, if you go to the rural or tribal area, and if you see that the artisans are excellent, but they do not have visibility. If you can create that niche, and if you can actually offer them that digital platform, and you be a communicator and a facilitator, you have a product ready. Then you will find your sponsors. You will, as Jyotsna madam mentioned, you will need to create those opportunities also for yourself. But you need to be really quick at grasping those opportunities as well. So that's my key takeaways from this.
Yes, we are completely out of time. It was a very intricate and a very interesting discussion. I think it's going to be a lot of information to people who are going to watch it. I hope so. And I thank both of you all to encourage me also by accepting the invitation and being a part of it as such. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sajan sir, and thank you, Josna madam, for being a part of this and giving me this opportunity to present heritage tourism on this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much and goodbye.
It's